This is Andy Tube. This video is part 4 of my attempted rehabilitation of a Singer Model 221 featherweight sewing machine motor. If you saw part 3, at the end of it I talked about that this video would be about cleaning the commutator, and I had mentioned about using an eraser. And I wrote up a little storyboard like I usually do with notes about the points I wanted to make and so forth. And when I was reviewing it, I says, wow, this is boring. This is like, you know, like an art class. How to erase carbon from your drawing. How to, you know, and instead of a sewing machine repair type of video. So I decided that in this video I'm going to try 3 ways to clean the commutator and see, you know, jazz it up here a little bit, and we'll take a walk on a wild side. But I am going to start with the eraser. That seems to be the most accepted way and recommended way, and it's been mentioned that even one of the service manuals talked about doing that method. So I've got a pink pearl. This is made by Paper Mate. It's been around a long time. It's like rubber type eraser, pink pearl. And I have a very old Sanford Magic Rub eraser that my daughter always used these and had a bunch of them around and left a few behind. So I'm going to use that too to see if it's any different or better or worse. And I'm just going to pick a spot here on the commutator that looks the worst, I guess. Right in here, it looks pretty dark. And I sprayed this off with an electrical cleaner, so I'm just going to start rubbing it. There's grooves worn in the copper, and they're worn like this, so that's how I'm going to start erasing this. And this does seem to be the easiest and the least invasive method of cleaning the commutator on this motor. You know, it's going to be pretty hard to do any damage with an eraser. Now, of course, you have your wires coming out and your termination and so forth, but it's pretty easy to control, you know, where you're erasing and everything like that. And look, you can see it shining up there now, and you know, it's kind of rolling up those carbon deposits from the motor brushes, and then kind of absorbing them into the eraser and rubbing them off. So it looks pretty impressive, doesn't it? And if I push hard enough, it's even getting the grooves pretty clean. And I'm applying pretty good pressure on it. I mean, it's a eraser, so what harm can it do, right? And it's actually looking better than I had imagined that it would. Let me add a little more light here at the workbench. Okay. So I'm just looking over where I'd been working on this. I can still see the etchings into the copper, but it has removed, I mean, here where I haven't done any, you can see, and then here where I've been using the eraser. So I can see why this is a popular method for doing this. I'm going to go ahead and try the Magic Rub eraser here, see if I can kind of find a flat edge, and I'll come where I left off with the pink pearl, and I'll start using this Magic Rub, and we'll see how it does. Now this is pretty old. It's still flexible and stuff, but my first impression is that it is not as effective. Let's just keep going along here and see. Maybe because it's, you know, at least a 20-year-old eraser. Yeah, it's starting to get in there now. Now that I've kind of rubbed off the outside edge, I think the inside of the eraser is a little more flexible. I would say that they're about the same, you know. And I honestly don't know if this is rubber or if it's some kind of a vinyl. It feels, you know, the feeling is the same, and I don't think they're natural rubber. If they are rubber, they're probably, you know, a synthetic rubber. Now the Magic Rub broke down a lot more than the pink pearl. It had a lot more stuff come off of it. Let's go back to this pink pearl here and just give it a little bit more. Really want to push hard. Apply a lot of pressure. See if that does any more. It looks like it's, well, it's hard for me to say. I was going to say it looks like it's flattening some of that etching, but it may just be getting it so clean that I can't see any carbon left in it, so I'm imagining it's smooth. But this may be abrasive enough to, besides removing the carbon, it might actually be, oh no, I can see the etching in there. But the motor was running, you know, so I have to believe this is going to improve the contact with the brushes a lot. I would think. Okay, so let me take a lint brush here and I'll brush all this off. And I think this is a very good way to go for you. Like I said, it's getting it a lot cleaner than I had imagined that it would. So, you know, turn on some good music or your favorite TV show and just rub away for a while. Get down in there. Now I did not rub in between the copper pads. I did not go down like that inside. They're not very deep. I tried to show you the edge of them here. They're just not real thick copper. Okay, let me clean this up, and then we're going to try method 2, even though this would be perfectly acceptable and it's doing a good job. So if that's what you were looking for, thanks for watching. And I hope to see you again. If you want to see a couple other methods, then hang on a sec and I'll get them set up here and we'll do those. Okay, for method number 2, this is an old school method, and we're just going to use basically sandpaper. We can call it emery cloth if we want, because it's very fine. When I used to do this on motors, I would use about a 600 or 800 grit, you know, very fine grit paper. And because this copper is very thin, I decided to use some 1000 grit. And it's like, man, it just, you can hardly tell the difference in the grit side and the paper backing side. You know, it's so fine. But I figured that way I wouldn't be doing damage or much damage to the copper. Now, you know, I've mounted it in a drill because I can't run the motor when it's unassembled, you know, without the motor brushes and stuff. So I just mounted it in a little drill here, and I'll have to, when I edit the video, I'll have to mute the sound out so it doesn't drive you crazy. Usually I would cut a strip of the emery cloth just a little bit less than the width of the commutator, right? Like this. But I cut it a thinner piece here to cover just like maybe half of it, because I have a third method that I want to try, and I want to see the results of it too. So I'm going to kind of clean the half of the commutator a little bit closer to the drill. You know, whatever method that you use for cleaning, you want to leave an even surface. No matter how clean you get it, you want it to be even. Like a couple friends of mine told me they saw a video where the fellow used a polishing wheel on a Dremel and some clay polisher, and they tried that, and it got the commutator super clean, but they said that it left some uneven surfaces because it's just a little spinning felt wheel, you know, dipped in like a clay polishing. And even though they tried to be very careful about evenly polishing, it left dips in the copper, and that made the motor brushes jump a little bit noisy and stuff. Still had great power, you know. So this is an old school method. Like I said, we're just going to take this, we're going to wrap it around the commutator, okay, and you want to make this long enough so that you've got a pretty good loop. You don't want a little short loop like this. You want to have some play room, okay, and this allows you how much you pull the emery cloth into the commutator. Okay, you don't have to worry about moving it around because this is going to be spinning. But you could control how little or how much. And I'm not going to do this too long because I don't want to wear a groove, you know, in like half the copper. So again, you'd usually have a piece that covered the whole piece of copper, so that you would be polishing it smoothly. Okay, so I'm just going to set it down here and run it a little bit. Wait, I'm going to reverse that so it's turning away from me. There we go. Okay, and I just want to see See that copper? That's what it's taken off the commutator, even at 1000 grit. Now that's very thin flakes, polished and embedded in here now, but that is the risk of using this. Now it's smoothing out all the high spots, and that's the advantage of it. But if you come back here to where I rubbed really hard with the eraser, it's clean. If you come to these places where I didn't use the eraser, you see I still have the grooves show. Where you're seeing darkness here are grooves that have been worn into the copper by the carbon brush. Okay? And the sandpaper is going to keep smoothing that down until there aren't etchings in there, but at the cost of removing some of the copper. Okay, so you have to decide if that's worth it, the condition of your commutator and how much speed you're getting out of it, if it's performing the way that you need, or if you want to polish it somewhat. Okay, let me do a little more here. So it is smoothing things out, which is what it's done. And I've done this to a lot of motors, but they're usually the slant needle machine motors. Okay, that's method 2. Okay, so you see some advantages where it's going to polish down and down and down those etchings. And the idea is the better contact between the carbon brush and the copper commutator, the more power will be produced. Alright, so now let me go set up for the third method, and we'll try that. Okay, this method I still have the motor shaft into the drill. It's nice and secure, so I can turn the commutator. And I'm going to use a brush seating stone, a diamond stick. I've done a couple other videos, 2 or 3 other videos on my channel about using this to seat brushes, especially new brushes, because the better they're seated and conform on the commutator, the more power. And the advantage of one of these is usually you have the motor together and the brush is on there, and you run this motor with the brushes while you put this stone on there, and it not only polishes the commutator but seats the brush very well. And again, with this type of motor, I can't run it unless all the covers are on, and then when that happens, you can't get to the commutator. But for the heck of it, I'm just going to try giving this came as one whole piece. Well, it was purchased as one whole piece like that for $10. This piece was broke off when it arrived, and then this broke off as I was using it and playing around with it. Okay, but I polished a lot of motors with this, and I still have a lot left. So the idea with this now is that you lightly put it on, and you keep moving it. Again, you don't want to just put it on and let it sit there, because this is going to take some of the copper. You know, it's going to smooth out these high spots. And if you just put it in one place, it's going to make a low spot, you know, on the commutator. Okay, so let's just give it a try and see, without the motor assembled and being able to seat the brush, just how well it does on the commutator. Okay, so what happens here is the stone wears down, you know, it crumbles. It kind of disintegrates as it's polishing, and so it, you know, it's generated a lot of dust here, but I'm not seeing a lot of copper mixed in with it, but it does. This is what I consider the new school method, you know. These are also called slip stones, by the way. I call it a brush seeder because the manufacturer of this called it that. And I'll put a link to it below in the description below the video where I bought it on Amazon. And this is a medium hardness, kind of an all-purpose. And the company that makes them makes several sizes, even for huge electric turbines and everything, and they make holders for them, and they make different hardnesses, and their little chart said like an appliance motor you would use, they recommended a kind of a harder stone, and this is medium, but everywhere I looked online had this medium stone, you know, like kind of like all-purpose. So I have to say that's still my favorite. It's still my favorite method. But you know, you don't need to critique me and tell me that I'm ruining my motor and, you know, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And please don't bother with comments like that. I mean, I'm just trying different things here, and you know, if you've ever wondered about this, you know, using an emery cloth or sandpaper or a brush seeder or a slipstone or anything like that, well, here you're seeing, and then you can make up your own mind, you know. I'm real happy with how that came out, and I would say, you know, either use an eraser and be done with it, or get yourself one of these brush seeding stones and be done with it real quick. But the eraser removed a lot of the carbon, and the stone has removed a lot, and polished it down a little bit. So there we go. Okay, and of course, you know, if you don't have those things and you want to use, oh, I should have done this with the full piece, but you get the idea, right? It's just the full width. Cut it carefully so it's the full width of the copper, and all of these were easy to control. You don't have to worry, or I didn't feel I had to worry about damaging anything here on the motor. I'd say very good job, an excellent job, and faster and cheaper. I couldn't find one of these at the store. I got 5 of them for $4 with free delivery from eBay. So that's very inexpensive. Okay, there's cleaning the commutator. This is looking pretty good now. I think I'm just about ready to assemble my motor. I was thinking about trying to clean up the filth on this thing. Still haven't decided about a cleaning method, so I may save it. This rubber washer was toast, all crumpled up and screwed up, and the closest thing I could find was this washer, but it didn't have the depth. This is a very thick for a washer. So I basically, you know, it had this same thing on the inside, and I basically cut that off. I like this part on the inside, it wouldn't fit in here, so I just cut it off, and I put like a RTV gasket making compound, just a smear of it around that piece, and stuck it in here, and it's, you know, so it's glued in there. That stuff can take heat up to, I forget, hundreds and hundreds of degrees, a couple thousand maybe. So I just wanted something there for my wires to not be, you know, to not be rubbing on metal. So if this looks like it sticks out a little more, you're right, it does. Okay, and then here's what I did on this wire where the ring was broken off on this one. I took a open clamp terminal instead of a round one. You know, it's kind of like a fork. Okay, and I cut off the little plastic insulator that goes on it. I cut that off because it made it like too bulky. And then I shaped this open a little bit with my needle nose. And I wanted this one because it's got to go on the wire terminal of the machine with another wire. So from the light, or from the power. So I wanted to be able to loosen that bake-like thumb nut and stick it on and off like that. Just slide it in under the ring and tighten it. So if I needed to remove the motor for any reason, I didn't have to take everything apart and lift the other wire. I could just loosen the thumb nut and pop this out. And this goes on terminal 2, and it'll be the only thing on there. So that's all I did with that, and just crimped it on the end of the wire there, cleaned up the end of the wire a little bit and crimped it. And I put my new gasket here. And then the last thing was this, where this goes into the body, and the wires were through it. And it kind of sits like that, and the motor's on the back of the machine, and the wires go in there and come out the bottom. And this was like the weirdest stuff. It's like, and it's all, I guess I could have reused it, you know. I felt like it was some kind of heat protection maybe, because it's just so, it's too thick for wear protection. It has like a fibers here that are kind of like thicker, like this is like real thick over what's on the wire. You know, it has this cording, and it's wrapped around the fiber, and it's all crumbly. It's all, you know, you can see it here. So I said I'm not putting that stuff back on there, but I wanted something. So I got this last year. I got this OATEY, OATEY, and I'll put a link for this too. And it's kind of like this fire-resistant felt stuff that you can hang on a stud, and it's like you're using a blowtorch welding equipment, and you don't want to set something on fire. So you put this behind it, you know, and you bring your pipe in here and your blowtorch, and it protects it. And I cut a chunk of it out to replace an asbestos heat pad and a foot pedal. So anyway, I cut a piece off of it because I already had this, and well, I wanted to show you here. You can separate this. See how it you just grab it in the middle and you start pulling it, and it separates it, brings it open, right? So I cut a piece off of the other side, I separated it, and then I asked my wife to just sew a seam down each side. So I made a little tube out of this, and this is very much heat resistant, and I'm going to use it instead of this. So I can feed my wires through it and feed it and the wires into the machine like that, and they'll come out the bottom down by the terminal. And this is real flexible stuff. So I'll put the name of it and a link to it so you can see what I'm talking about. And this made a very good protector heat pad replacement. And I can't, maybe it was the 99K I did that needed a heat shield, heat insulator replaced. So that's my other repairs for the motor. You know, besides, you saw me do the wicks and so forth, and when I get it back together more, I'm going to talk about, not today, but I'm going to talk about the motor brushes. These are the motor brushes that was in there, and I didn't know what to expect. So before I had taken the motor apart, I had some nice donations. Thank you to everybody who's donated to my channel. And so I ordered some new brushes from the Featherweight Shop, because I heard about their quality. A lot of these brushes I've gotten over the years are from China and India, and I feel like the carbon is a lot softer and it just disintegrates. So I will use the original vintage Singer carbon until it's just impossible to use it anymore before I'll put those. But this is supposed to be, and they're marked FWS for Featherweight Shop, you know, and they're supposed to be the exact size you need. But look at the old one, the original Singer, compared to the new. I mean, look how much of the original one is left. So I'm not going to use these. I'm going to put the original Singer back in there, right? And they're curved and everything. These come somewhat curved and shaped. No matter what, they'll have to reseat to this commutator now that I've cleaned it and polished it. But I wanted to show you those because they're and they look like good quality, and they feel, you know, I press my thumbnail into it a little bit and stuff, and they feel good. But to me, I don't think that they're going to be as good as the original. And look how much of the original is still left on there compared to buying the new one. So that's it. We'll put this together, and I'll mount it back on the machine, and I'll just show you the terminations quickly, because I'm going to take it all back off the machine for cleaning and stuff like that. But that's the commutator video. Okay. I hope you found that interesting, and I hope you'll come back and visit me again in the future. Thanks for watching, and take care.